Hi, I'm Andy Bache. I direct Adventure Serve Ministries, and I'm in the shack tonight. It's night number 1 of 5 days, and I am sharing the shack tonight with a good friend and a fellow minister in this community. And why don't you tell them about yourself?
I'm glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me, Andy. My name's Todd Johns, and I'm the founder and executive director of Revive Lifehouse, Revive Ministries in Nicholasville, Kentucky, a substance abuse treatment center that help men come from addiction to life in Jesus and discipleship and all that good stuff, man.
Yeah.
You know, getting guys back to life.
And this week we're having conversations, just trying to kind of facilitate conversations around the shack about issues of substandard housing, which this represents, as well as homelessness. And you know, as you study the data out there, there's a good percentage of those that are dealing with homelessness, or they're dealing with a housing crisis of some type, and they're dealing with it partially due to substance abuse, or sometimes substance abuse is exasperated in a housing crisis.
Sure.
So I just felt like you would be a really good person to speak towards this, because you know, you would have had the opportunity, I suppose, to just begin a homeless shelter, yet instead you chose a specific population.
Yeah.
Maybe tell us a little bit about how that started and where the intentionality was.
Well, I think the point behind it was we could kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will, you know. And of course, not everybody who struggles with addiction is homeless, but there is a high percentage. And if you talk with, you know, any of our guys that come through, or anyone that comes through treatment, typically, and I don't know what the percentage would be, but a lot of them have experienced that, or at least a season of that, you know, going through that. And so
a season of homelessness.
And maybe even you know, going from couch to couch or something like that.
One of the things that I've found is that there's kind of two types of homelessness. You have episodic homelessness and chronic homelessness.
Is that what they call it? Okay.
And episodic is, you know, maybe a few months out of your life, or, you know, you're on and off. Whereas chronic, it's a lot harder to get those folks off the streets. Now that's only about 20% of the homeless, whereas putting energy towards the episodic homeless has a greater potential to...
You know, and speaking to that, we recently saw that in the last year. We've partnered with the New Day Center in Lexington.
Okay.
You know, and great...
And New Day
Center.
Briefly, just explain who they are.
New Life Day Center.
Okay.
They're just down off of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard there.
And what do they do?
And they are a day center, drop-in
day center for the homeless.
Yep.
Okay.
And they have some lockers. They have feed them.
Just a place to be.
To be. But they also let other outside services come in, and agencies to help, you know, with medical and things like that.
Sure.
And to your point, though, those who are the chronic homelessness, it's a lot more difficult, because as the founder would say, Steve Polson would often say that, you know, it's a mindset. It's about, you know, trying to break a mentality that they feel like they're always going to be stuck in.
Yeah.
You know. So it's different. And combined with sometimes mental illness and addiction, it's pretty tough.
Yeah. I've heard terms like the 3 H's of helpless, hopeless, homeless.
Yeah.
You know, those three just and it is very constrictive.
Yeah.
And a very mental process in it. But I feel like I steered you off. You were saying kind of what brought you into initiating Revive.
Yeah. So, of course, out of my own personal story, at 19 years old, I was a mess, to say the least. And at 21 years of age, I found freedom. I found freedom in God, you know, in Christ. And through a series of events, without unfolding the whole testimony, but my life went from a life of hopelessness and despair, kind of couch surfing and stealing from anybody and everybody to feed it, pushing everybody out of my life, to the place where I was accepted and loved again. And you know, and I was always loved, I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
I think that's the monster of addiction. And so at 21 years of age, I had an encounter with God, and God set me on a completely new path, a new life. And from there, I've traveled and got me some education and and did the college thing and married into a beautiful family and have a wife and kids now, and God is just just so good in that, and unfolding of my life and that story, and so now we're at a season here in the last 5 years we've been able to really take that and apply it and give back and begin to show others this in a real tangible way through opening the doors of the Lifehouse. So we're a long-term treatment center for men.
Yeah,
7
go ahead
months.
and give a quick description
7 months,
of what it is.
Long-term, 3 phases, clinical counseling, meeting some medical needs there. They're getting peer support services and case management. We got pastors and volunteers coming in from the community to lead Bible studies and things of that nature. And they're involved in the community doing some outside groups as well. We try to be engaged in the community. Our guys are about giving back, and we want them to have a greater purpose to live for, Andy. I think that's the number one cause of relapse, is that people just don't have a greater purpose to live for. Not just a job and a paycheck. Those things are needed, yes.
Yeah.
But having this opportunity to have that greater purpose to live for. So we're trying to be engaged in the community. We'll help out in chamber events and help the widow next door type thing as well.
So every client needs to sign on saying, okay, I'm going to commit to these 7 months, as opposed to, hey, I just need a place to stay for a week.
Yeah. And we have that. We'll have ones. We do have a 30-day track. Because we always say, if we can only get them for 30 days, we want them. We want to give it a shot and share that love with them. But it's 30 days. We have 30 track, and it's 7 months. Well, we have guys that come in and are like, I'm only signing up for the 30 days, but then they end up staying on for the 7 months.
Yeah.
And,
so many people and young guys at that stage can't think further than 30 days.
Well, you're right. You're right. And we have, I'd say we're definitely average age is 30 and below, but we do have some older gentlemen that come through the doors that are 40, 50 plus. But yeah, it's interesting to see after even just a few days sometimes that the perspective change, the going from just the head being down and they're so depressed and beat up, to lifting of their heads and cracking a smile after a few days. Oh, there's some light in there, and so it's really neat to see these and really start to come back to life.
I bet that's so inspiring, just to recognizing that it's like they feel like they're being seen, they're cared for,
they're loved, they are somebody. They're not just a number. They're not just an addict with a label.
Yeah. So, what would you say are some of the challenges for you, or maybe the obstacles sometimes of helping, either as you guys try to make this work in a county that never had something like this?
I think one of the greatest challenges, of course, in this type of endeavor and ministry is the challenge of there's a real thing that counselors and even pastors go through called compassion fatigue. It's a real thing. This ministry is very taxing and draining, and you have a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And I think sometimes that's the most difficult thing is not just caring for our clients and people that come through these doors as our residents, but also caring for the staff. And so having adequate self-care stuff and taking care of one another, shepherding our staff as well as the clients, but I think one of the greater challenges as well is people coming in. I'm working with a group. Matter of fact, we're going to meet later this week about potentially kicking off a one-on-one mentoring discipleship. I hate to say program, but program. That would put some stability and structure for every guy. What if we had every guy that walked through our doors had an Andy waiting to meet him and be a big brother to him and encourage him and just weekly meet with him an hour or whatever it is, for as long as that guy would track with us.
Something like an AA sponsor or a mentor that's I'm on you.
But to have that from day one and track with that guy even all the way through. And even if a guy only makes it part of the way through, there's a relationship that's there, that's formed and forged, in the love of God.
Yeah. And I'm guessing in a way that you would hope that would combat compassion fatigue is sometimes us as directors or maybe just the program managers that are keeping track of 12 guys. They're wanting to pour themselves in.
Right.
And we experience this with our Adventure Serve teams, sometimes with our staff, where they just pour themselves out for a week.
Yes.
Love on the kids, and then the kids are gone, and then they do it again. And it's, there's an element of this is great to be part of the body of Christ and part to be pouring yourselves out.
Right.
But there needs to be some moderating.
Yes.
And some recognition of our limits as humans.
That's
so
right.
to have one sponsor or mentor for each of your clients that plays
That'd be huge.
That personal role.
Yeah, that'd be a big deal.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And this whole homelessness thing that we're talking about as well, and how it's correlates with addiction. Just a matter of fact, recently we've had some of our guys that have come through, and some of them are on staff, and some of them are in the later phases of our program right now. And of course, this time of year, we everybody's cold. It's cold outside, and there are people who are cold and need a place to stay and need blankets and food. And so, some of our guys are actually beating the streets, man. They're getting donations just from anybody and everybody, and I love that because that's them saying, "Hey, I was there 9 months ago," I was there 12 months ago.
Yeah.
I was there 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And let me just love on you a minute,
Oh, yeah.
And
Those are the folks that sometimes just, their hearts are huge and they just sense gratitude. It reminds me of the time that I was in the shack. Someone brought a cup of soup over and said, "I was once homeless. I really appreciate what you're doing." And tell me about it. And she's like, "Yeah, it was just last year. I was staying in a kiddie structure in Nicholasville on a couple nights, and so I just know where it's at." And I had no idea who this person was, and she had to give back in some way.
All right.
And so your guys just having this grand desire, this knee-jerk response, like the parable or the story in Scripture of the tax collector that was just was just crying
out to God,
and tears of grace, tears of gratitude, so tell me a little bit more about some of these, maybe a success story and kind of what happens on the other side for them. And I know there's a bit of recidivism that happens as well.
Sure.
And that might also add to compassion fatigue. You help someone get on their feet, and then 3 months later, you hear from them again.
Here they are again.
Yeah, but addiction's a powerful thing, and it doesn't completely let go.
Yeah, that's right.
But tell me about some of the successes that you've seen.
Yeah, I think of course, everybody's life and story is a bit different. We've seen guys come through the program. I think of one guy in particular who's a hometown boy. And everybody knew him, and so we don't take too many hometown boys just because it's home turf, and it's just easy to walk right out and whatever.
Yeah.
But this gentleman came through, and it was like from the first week, in the first couple weeks, just kind of seeing what God was doing in his life. One particular time, we're in group, my wife's leading group, and get a knock on the door, and it's the sheriff, and we're here to get so and so, and he's got to come. He's got a bench warrant out, and so we got to take him. And so this kid, it's not kid, he's a guy. He's just to see in that moment, guys, it's going to be okay. Now, he didn't want to go. He was a little shaken, but he pulled that whole group together and said, "Let's pray."
The guy did,
and my wife. And so
knowing that he was about to go.
Oh, yeah. So they go, or he goes, they pray, and he goes. And the cool part about the story, it's like a mirror story of the, the Paul and Silas type story, and then, So he goes and he gets in the holding room, and there's all kind of people in there, and he tells us this afterwards, but he's thinking it's a Friday, it's going to be the weekend, and I'm not talking to anybody until Monday at best, maybe Tuesday.
Sure about getting up.
Yeah, so he gets up, or he's in there, and he's like having this moment, like kind of like a crossroads moment with God. And he says, it's the strangest thing. He said, I don't know if it's anxiety, fear, fight or flight mode was taking place. He said, but my legs were on fire, man. And he said, I just knew I had to get up and tell somebody what Jesus is doing in my life. He's like 3 weeks into our program. And so he gets up and he just tells people. He just starts talking to people. He tells them who he is and what they're doing. And there was a guy in there he had to reconcile with that he had previously fought with last time he was in jail. And he just, for about 45 minutes, this is going on. Right. And he's just going to anybody who will listen, and he's just telling them about Jesus. Look what God's done in my life. You know, this sounds crazy, but look what God's doing in my life. So after about 45 minutes of that, Andy, the door swings open. They yell his name, and they're like, come on. And he's like, what do you mean, come on? And he's like, well, you're being released. Come on, let's go. You know, and that worked it out behind closed doors or whatever, or the judge, DPA, whoever, basically said, no, he needs to get back to treatment. So the next morning we're having a men's breakfast. I got some buddies in from out of state, out of town, and we walk in and there he is. And I'm just like, what? And everybody's around him listening to this story. Yeah. You know, and you can just feel the faith building in the room and the energy, and people are just so his story continues. So he completes the program, does wonderful, completes the program, joins our staff. He's on staff with us now, and has a wife. Matter of fact, him and his wife are right now at the hospital, about to have a baby, and you know, and people watching this will know who I'm talking about. Yeah. But you know, and it's just so that's an amazing success story of what we're seeing, and there's plenty others like that as well.
And his story makes me think about the fact that, you know, and entering into a facility like yours, they're on step one of change.
Yeah.
And they're beginning to turn their life around, but the tidal wave of their life may still be on their back at any minute. And so 3 weeks in, I'm guessing what he was called for was something that had taken place before he was in. Yeah. And you still got to turn and face the consequences. But if he wasn't starting to turn his life around, and if Christ wasn't getting a hold of his mind and spirit, he wouldn't have the wherewithal and the supports.
Yes.
And then that anxiety of, well, I'm here. I need to pay for my consequences. And if that's what it is, God, what do you have for me?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get up and start doing it. And it's just, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So...
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Well, how do you have just some ideas? Maybe ideas how people can get involved. I mean, I know that even with Adventure Serve, we volunteer with a wide variety of partner agencies, centers for disabilities and homeless shelters, food pantries. We have a little trouble being able to tap into agencies like yours sometimes because you've got guidelines of clients. And do you have volunteer opportunities, and what do those look like?
Sure.
Maybe it's a little bit more committed, ongoing, but just maybe tell us if someone who's watching this cares about either substance abuse or assisting people that are on the verge of dealing with substandard housing or homelessness, what are some things they can be doing?
Yeah, it's good. So I think we have those kind of two tracks of the volunteers. You have those the project-based ones where we have some things around the facilities that could use some help. You could come in and do a Bible study, cook a meal on a Saturday, bring your life group, bring a church group, bring your neighbor, I don't care. Those types of things. And typically spring and fall, there's always the tidying up around the grounds and that sort of thing.
I need to go and get a tour of your facility and check it out.
Yeah. So we have multiple facilities that can use some help along the way, right? So there's those tracks, those opportunities. And then there's the opportunities.
And those are real needs, assisting so that the staff.
Well, sure, absolutely
isn't doing that.
And the fact that and let me just put a quick little plug in here. I think you'll appreciate this too. When people come to serve, I always I try to, as much as I can, get in front of the group and thank them first and foremost. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for maybe you brought materials, you bought stuff. You're going to feed our guys, whatever. But sometimes we think this goes without saying, but we need to let people know that if you're volunteering, that it's above and beyond. That you shouldn't just come in because you're volunteering and do kind of a halfway job, if you will. You know, because unfortunately, maybe we've experienced that a couple times, and it really makes more work for us to do on the backside to clean it up, or just whatever. So with that being said, but there's opportunities on the grounds and those types of kind of one-off things, and then we have the ongoing track, where we really would mentoring program I mentioned. So we're going to need men to mentor these men. The Bible study, the ongoing Bible study, and you can do a 12-week rotation and go out or whatever, 6 weeks. We always kind of plugging and playing in our program schedule that way. And then also beyond that, we do a Sunday night gathering at the former Jay's Place coffee shop, Main and Maple, called Crave, and it's open to the public. The public can come out to that, and that's growing quite a bit. But there's opportunities during those public meetings to get some facilitator training through myself and our group, and you can facilitate a group. So you don't necessarily have to be volunteering directly at the residential program. You could be in the community within these recovery circles, being a coach, a mentor, a sponsor, whatever you want to call it, and helping to facilitate groups, discussion time. That's so important for these guys to be able to have a safe place to share and facilitate time. So those are some real ways to get plugged in.
That's great to have some clear volunteer tracks and ways
try to have
plug
something
in
for everybody, and women will often say, well, can women come? Yes, we actually have a partner. They're not a couple, but a man and a woman come, and this lady, Peggy Park, she's awesome. She leads a Bible study. And she's been doing it for years, and she brings a guy, and a gentleman's name slipping my mind, but he plays guitar and does some music, and she leads the Bible study. It's awesome. So yes, females as well. We're careful how to do that, but yeah.
Thanks so much for bringing it out. Is there anything else that you want to comment on, or anything maybe? You are. As you see what Jessamine County needs and how it's changing, is there some thoughts you have? Or?
Probably too long to share here. I love Jessamine County, man. I do. I think we have a great county, and Nicholasville's a great city to live in, little town to live in, and there has been, even in the short 5 years that I've lived here, I've only been here 5 years, people say it takes 20 or 30 years to become a native or a local, just because people are accustomed to that. But so I'm still the new kid on the block. But I see a lot of good even in the short 5 years I've lived here. Some changes, taking place from downtown, trying to bring in new businesses and different stuff, and the chamber. And so I think everyone's really working together to make it the best place possible to live. And there's the police and fire department. They're great to work with. They love us. We love them. We try to help them, and they'll come do different stuff with us. And so we've had nothing but great community support over there. We love it. We really do, being there. And so I think it really covers a lot, Andy. I just want to say I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you and your heart and what you do with Adventure Serve, and you're a real what's the right word? Connector, maybe is I guess the word. Connecting people and resources and needs, and thank you for just being kingdom minded, man. I think if anything, I would love for the church and the people and the folks of Nicholasville to just continue to work together. We're better together.
I think, I just think that there's a lot of good things happening and good opportunities and good programs, and people need to hear about them, and you pointed to them. I've been encouraged by what Shala's been doing here in Wilmore.
Yes, me too.
With Arrow, and it sounds like she's reached out to you for some assistance and guidance in that. but Wilmore's kind of a unique town when it comes to substance abuse because of its culture of prohibition, or just like never touch anything.
Yeah.
And there's this. I think we're changing a little bit in recognizing that.
Maybe not so naive about it, right?
Yeah. But she's been doing some great things and using some good tools. So
Wonderful.
thanks for the compliments and thanks for sharing.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.